It's finally happening. Code Vein is back. How many years has it been? 5, 6 years? I don't know, it felt like ages. But as someone that's a big fan of Code Vein and which might be surprising to you guys that follow this channel, considering the games that I've covered so far, I'm very hyped for Code Vein 2, and feels like we need a bit more Code Vein positivity and general hype, and also because I'm just excited for it, because Code Vein was not just the anime Souls-like for me. It was set in a world that I genuinely care about, and it was just a really fun game for me in general, with some crazy potential. But before we move on further ahead, be aware that I will be talking about spoilers from Code Vein 1. So if you haven't played Code Vein 1 and want to go in spoiler free, please click off the video. It's a really fun game, I recommend it. Also, please subscribe, like or dislike even, and share this video to other Code Veiners out there, because it will really help me and the channel. And now back to the video. There's some very understandable worries from what the developers said about the story, but I'll also have some theories, some lore implications shall we say, or I could be just a crazy person making conspiracy theories out of nothing. I also wanted to round up all the info that we've gotten so far and make theories, hopes, and general speculations on them, because boy, it looks like we're eating good guys. Maybe not the story, but hey, game's not out yet, so I'm not judging yet. Still, it's really disappointing for me to hear that the game apparently doesn't take place in the same universe as Code Vein 1. But I have some theories. Because I love the fact that it's in the same role as God Eater. Yes, just in case you're unaware, Code Vein takes place in the same role as God Eater, which was the developer's former games except for God Eater 3, which they outsourced to Marvelous, the co-developers of the Senran Kagura games and Daemon X Machina. I'll delve more into this connection later because it's very important for my conspiracy theory that Code Vein 2 might still be in the same role as Code Vein 1 and God Eater, or at least still has a huge connection to it. Or I could be just a dumb shit and it's actually a completely new world and it's all true and they're making Code Vein a Final Fantasy or Tales of type series and Dark Souls, with them only taking the visual and gameplay elements from the first one, which I'll admit it'll give them more creative freedom on what they can do without being limited by the previous lore that was established in God Eater and Code Vein. But we'll see which one they'll go with when it releases. From a gameplay perspective though, it just seems like a bigger and more expanded version of Code Vein 1, which I'm all for, with them having one big overworld, but not an open world, as the devs said, which was kinda interesting that they have to point that out, where you can drive a motorcycle around in, that I'm just gonna call the Vein Cycle now. But going back to the overworld part, what they meant is probably something kind of like a Elden Ring type open world, but a lot smaller probably. Obviously, this is going to change the pacing a lot, as the original Code Vein was pretty linear after the first two sets of levels, barring that one optional section which was supposed to be the intro to the game. And now that they have a big overworld, it probably means that we'll always have a set of levels that we can go pretty much any time if we get stuck or get distracted. So there's always a choice regarding the levels that we wanted to tackle. And this is before we get into the time travel stuff, which opens up a whole new can of worms in terms of, well, everything really. I'll explain my theories and concerns later. Just watching the gameplay footage though, there's sure some huge open maps and arenas this time around, which indicates the more open-ended nature of Code Vein 2 compared to Code Vein 1. We'll see if it works though. Don't want it to become an Ubisoft open world, or brrr, a Dynasty Warriors 9 open world.
Good luck out there. I'm counting on you.
You are an inspiration to us all.
But I don't think we have to worry about it having a big empty world that's only there to pal out the runtime. I think that's what they meant by Code Vein 2 not having an open world. Hey, the hub with the hot springs are back though, gotta have that. I'll admit that I laughed when they used that reveal as the stinger for one of the trailers. Though I do wonder if you can travel manually back to the hub area, and it exists as a physical location in the overworld, or are they gonna make it a disconnected area that you can only fast travel to, like in the original Code Vein, and some of the Souls-like games? Will be interesting to know. I'm actually okay with either way. As for the combat, there's some really interesting tidbits that I noticed from the trailers and previews. One of the most obvious one being that there seems to be a stealth system now, as the Prota can crouch and sneak around behind enemies' backs, and you seem to be able to actually jump to avoid attacks now rather than it just being a part of an attack. Those two things already can change a lot of the combat encounters in the game, with you being able to sneak around and take out enemies one by one, thinning them out, before going all out. But I do say though, you can already kinda do this even in Souls-like games that doesn't have a crouch stealth system. But the fact that they've added this means that they've probably expanded on it a bit more than the usual, walking around behind enemy then stabbing them, and also changed the encounters to more accommodate this playstyle. Not saying they'll be the best and most important option, you can probably just go in and start bomb rushing everyone, but it's an option nonetheless, and I think that's a good thing, because the original Code Vein thrives on build creativity and playstyles. It's an incredibly free blood code system, which is back by the way, but we still don't know what they've done to it to make it better, or just left it as it is. What I hope for is the ability to quick switch between the two of them at least, in the style of Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin job system, which might be a bit too OP, but I think it fits the game's anime style. Still, glad to see it's back, and looking forward to see how it looks now. Back to the jumping part, the fact that you can actually jump can change a lot on how enemy encounters might happen now, with you having to jump to avoid attacks like in Sekiro, and having actual aerial rapes now. This opens up a whole new line of questions for me, when I saw that you can jump and do aerial rapes, my mind immediately went to the launcher move from the first one, where you can do a launcher devour combo move that, I forgot the name, sorry, I'm just gonna say the god eater name, which was the moment I realized, focus is gone now, at least the old form of focus. I can't see it on the UI, and no one is talking about it in the previews. Unless I'm just missing it, comment down below if I'm missing it. But as far as I know, focus is no longer a mechanic. To be honest, I don't really like focus that much in the first game, because you can only enter focus mode by being reactive rather than active, like perfect dodging and getting hit. And all the buffs that you can get from being in the focus mode were pretty fun, and the launcher move was pretty snazzy. It could have been better by making it something that you can enter by being actively aggressive and getting rewarded for it, like using blood veils to get more focus. Okay, this is not a review of Code Vein 1, and I'm getting carried away. Back to Code Vein 2 with the loss of focus, I hope they have more ways for us to launch enemies into the air, especially now that you can jump and do aerial raves. It will be so cool I think if we can do that. Other than that, the fundamental still looks pretty much the same with some interesting differences I wanted to point out, other than the obvious ones that is, like more blood veils, aka jails, and weapon types. I'm just gonna put up the new stuff here on screen for you to see. Some of them sure looks really interesting though, but I'm more interested in talking about the funkier things like the health system that now seems to be separated into two bars with different colors. The blue one seems to be a shield of some sort, not a halo type regenerating shield system or anything like that, and I haven't seen anything different from taking damage while still in the blue or in the normal health bar. At first I thought it might be some sort of stagger defense, but nope, you still get staggered in the blue health. And then I think, maybe you'll take less damage in the blue health? I don't know, what do you think? Seems pretty funky. Moving on, blood veils are called jails now. They seem to act pretty much the same in Code Vein 2, with the main difference being that they no longer visually appear on your character, and instead just forms around your main outfit, instead of your outfit turning into the weapons. I don't really like this change that much, because I like how the blood veils look on your character. Sure, they can be really limiting on how you want to look, but I'll admit that I don't like that the main outfits that are not blood veils are a part of the character creator, instead of something that you can find in the game, and they just put them on your character. Heresy, I know, but that's just how I feel about it. Speaking about the character creator though, it looks hot. Nothing much else to say about it, except please give me a bald option. And have beards maybe? Please? Back to the jails, I do wonder if they'll still change your parry timing depending on what jail you're using. Or they're gonna make all of them have the same timing. I actually did like the different parry timings on the different blood veils. They gave each blood veils more identity I think. And I hope they keep it. Especially now that you can do special big devour attacks on staggered bosses, which is just a great addition. And I was wondering why didn't the Code Vein 1 had this in the first place.
What is at stake here?
Another thing to note is the new bleed system, which I haven't fully grasped it yet, but it seems like those grey health on fighting games, and the more you have them on an enemy, the bigger your devour attack will hit. It'll probably give you more ichor, and it looks like all of the weapons have different bleed stats. It does seem important enough to be shown in big letters in your gear menu. I do love how you can visually see the bleed scars on the enemy to see how much they are bleeding. I don't know how it'll affect the combat, but we'll see. Onto the much obvious changes are the addition of Formé type weapon slash moves. These weapon types are divided into two categories that you seem to be able to use on the fly, an offensive one and a defensive one. You can only pick one of these types and they all use ichor. The ones they've shown us so far for the offensive type are the bow and the great chainsword. I'll get back to you later. And the defensive one is a shield, and it looks like that you can pretty much use Formé anytime as long as you have ichor. And that means the game will reward more aggressive playstyles because you get ichor from attacking enemies, which I'm always for. And the fact that the bow plays like a Neo bow is great. And the Great Chainsword feels really good to use just from seeing it in action. You'll see how it is in the game itself. And an instant shield will always be handy in a pinch, because unless you're using a Great Sword, it's really not worth it to block in Code Vein 1. I hope it works like the absorption mechanic from Stranger of Paradise. Well, maybe without the absorbing powers bit. Just the instantaneous and limited nature of it, so I can't spam it. But hey, I don't mind it if they just rip it off wholesale. Before we got into another big one, I just wanted to quickly note that the bayonet weapon type no longer uses Icar to shoot and uses its own type of ammunition. I think this is a smart move because with the addition of our melee weapons alongside the weapon skills, the bayonet will definitely be sidelined if it still uses Icar to shoot enemies with, when you have probably much better options to use Icar on than the main thing of a primary weapon. Still, I found it kind of funny that it doesn't use the over-the-shoulder aiming view that the bow uses and still uses the Code Vein 1 perspective. Oh yeah, Goshenna is back to compose Code Vein 2. Honestly, I was afraid that he might have not come back for God Eater in Code Vein after apparently leaving Bandai Namco quite a while ago, especially after he found Giga's success in Demon Slayer. But he's back composing God Eater 3 and now Code Vein 2. Really glad he's back though, because these games won't be the same without his soundtrack, and I'm sure he'll do great in Code Vein 2. But if I may hope for one thing from him, is that please add a combat insert song. Code Vein 1 has soundtracks that has lyrics in it, but they're not the hype anime boss music themes, which is a type that I hope he adds into Code Vein 2. I want something like No Way Back, Wings of Tomorrow, Blood Rage, and Nemesis. Hell, he even put one into his Ace Combat game. Companions is probably one of the biggest main features in Code Vein 1 that differentiates it from other Souls-likes, and they've expanded it further here, quite literally, as they've said that there's gonna be more partner characters in Code Vein 2 than in Code Vein 1, which was also the same case when they went from God Eater 1 to God Eater 2. God Eater 2 has so many characters, I miss them. Wait, where was I? Oh yeah, partners. They've clearly stated that there's gonna be more in Code Vein 2, and now there's a new mechanic that comes with them, assimilation, or fusion. Now, instead of just completely ignoring a main feature if you want to go at it alone, you can equip your partners to get unique buffs. Close enough. Welcome back, Tales of Zestiria. Again, I love this idea, and the fact that you can just switch between defusing and defusing on the fly opens up a whole new gameplay options. Though I do wonder if there's a cooldown or other limitation to fusing, or you can just quick switch between them without any limitations. I would be really interested to know how they'll tackle it, because I haven't seen anyone talk about it. Do you know about it? If you do, comment down below. I really would like to know. And speaking about quick switching, please give us, well, me, the ability to quick switch between two weapons. I don't know if anyone else wants it, but I want it. That will be great. Anyway, another thing that I would like them to add are character episodes. They haven't said anything about the partners themselves, except some of their general backstories, gameplay abilities, and what time travel can do to them in fake terms. But they haven't talked anything about character episodes, side quests, friend quests, or things like that. This is me from the future, just gonna correct some stuff, but they did, and they will have character episodes where you go to locations in the open world with them to do their stories, and they will focus more on the partners, which is awesome. Alright, back to you, past me. I felt like the original Code Vein was a bit half-baked in this department. When partners are one of its main features that differentiates it from other Souls-likes, I would like to know more about them directly and have events, side quests that show us more about them instead of just being a passive absorber of their backstory from the vestiges and main story moments. I also would like to see them just hang out with each other in the hub, like in Hot Springs, which was kind of a missed opportunity for me in Code Vein 1, simply because none of them interacted with one another. Or character episodes, like I want to see the party grow with each other and be friends. Because in Code Vein, there's only a few scenes where they're just hanging out without anything looming over them, unless they're not making the quote-unquote main parties non-existent, because I'll admit that time travel kinda complicates things quite a bit. But I hope they'll make the character interactions more important this time around. But I don't think we have to worry about this, because they already done this with God Eater, because oh boy, God Eater 2 sure improved that quite a bit. So I trust that they'll improve it, at least in some form, especially with the time travel feature, which is a topic that I'll go to next, and seems to be the main feature of Code Vein 2, with it being able to affect the story and gameplay. So in Code Vein 2, you can time travel, because a Revenant with the ability to time travel shared her heart with you to save your life, because you are not a Revenant this time around. You're a normal human this time around. There's also a Revenant Hunter. And the world is ending again, and to save the present, you must save the past. Pretty interesting. And from what they said, you can travel back and forth almost any time, barring some sections where they said you can't travel back to the past or to the future and get stuck in the past for a bit. And changing the past will affect the present because our actions have consequences. And here's the interesting part, I think. They say it won't just affect characters but the world itself, with bosses getting stronger as their main example. That seems really ambitious to me. Does that mean that locations can actually change with new paths opening? Or new locations popping up in the present? While characters that died in the past can survive to the present. Yeah, I know that Revenants can't die permanently by special circumstances, but I'm just using that as an example. Or they'll become your enemies in the present if you've made certain decisions in the past. The sky is basically the limit with this feature, and I really don't know what to expect from it, except maybe accidentally erasing yourself from existence. For the story itself and its apparent disconnection from the God Eater universe, they've clearly stated that it's because of the time travel they've set in an alternate dimension, where Revenants already exist even before the Great Collapse, which contradicts the lore of them being created as a response to the Aragami emergence. It's basically kind of a different skull or mutation that creates God Eaters. There's even more Aragami than man, and also, the story takes place 100 years after the collapse of society, which means if it still takes place in the same world, it's even further in the future than God Eater 3, though horrors, aka Aragamis, still exist in this apparently new universe. Don't know if they're actually Aragamis though.
Until the resurgence struck, these horrors must have been the city's residents.
They do look like Aragamis, but I haven't seen any Thorns of Judgment, which was a creation of the God Eater anime and was retroactively put into God Eater 3 and also Code Vein. But that's basically the all that we know so far from the previews. Thanks for being here so far, but you can leave now if you just want the info that we have about Code Vein 2 and my hopes for it, because the next section will be me going fucking nuts trying to make a connection to a series that they've clearly stated to no longer have any plot connections to because of the time travel, you see. But I can still see the threads of fate, the oracle cells that binds us all, to say is that Code Vein 2 is still connected to the God Eater universe and that they might be lying to us. Alright, without further ado, let's get to the conspiracy theories, shall we? Oh yeah, massive spoilers ahead for the God Eater franchise. Highly recommend them.
I'm afraid I don't see a chance of winning here.
We'll win, even if it kills us.
First, let's tackle the time travel, shall we? It's probably the biggest elephant in the room, and the entire reason why they decide to disconnect it from the God Eater Code Vein universe. But what if I tell you that time travel already exists in God Eater? Hear me out. It may be kind of a DLC mission, but it's there, and he has actual cutscenes, so I'm gonna take it. So in God Eater 2, there's a special mission in which you travel back in time to save the mentor of the first God Eater's protect, Lindo mutating into a corrosive Hannibal Aragami. After he was betrayed and locked in the time... Alright, I kid. After he was betrayed and forced to be left behind. By the way, Lindo shares the same surname as Louis from the first game, Amamiya. And Louis himself looks a lot like Ren, which is a whole can of worms that I'm not ready to open in this video. So by using the resonance ability the God Eaters have, the MC somehow traveled back in time and slowed his corruption with the help of a human Aragami Shio, which is another whole can of worms that I'm not ready to open just yet. And this is time travel instead of an out-of-body experience, because Lindo will react to the MC's appearance. You have to fight Aragami with him, and in the end, you have to leave him as he turns into an Aragami, while he's shouting at it to run away before he fully turns. And then he went back to the present, so the Protect of God Eater 2 managed to slow his corruption enough that the Protect of God Eater 1 can save him. While the canonicity of the mission might be suspect, but the fact that it's there and has some budget put into it, gave it some merit, I think. So let's put that into evidence 1 on how it's still connected. Time travel exists. Oracle cells can do it. Another thing that they apparently changed from the original lore is that Revenants are now already exist before the Aragami emergence, which does contradict the lore from the OG, where they created to combat the horrors, aka the Aragami, and are basically a different mutation from the same thing they gave us God Eaters. Maybe they use boar parasites instead of bias factors. I do notice that the Revenants have different characteristics now, with more gold colors and markings on their body, instead of the usual black and red. But this is where my theories comes in. What if this is a result of reckless time travel, that they now exist even before the Aragami? And the fact that there's already a rule that forbids meddling in the past implies that it already happened before, and even then, another apocalypse still happens anyway, sooner or at the same time as the original Aragami emergence.
I remind you that tampering with history, unless under the most extreme of circumstances, is strictly forbidden.
But probably a slightly different one that resulted in different looking Revenants and horrors. But they are still Revenants and horrors. And it looks like things went so bad that the only way to save the world is to go back in time and set things right, which connects it a bit more to the original Code Vein and God Eater, but still branches off into a different timeline. I think this is the more likely thing that's going to happen, so they have two alternate timelines that we were born from the same source, laying the groundwork for a lot of lore, instead of it being a completely new universe, because there's still a lot of things that still connects it to God Eater, as most of the OG Code Vein's lore was heavily based on the info that can be found in the God Eater series, like the Boar Parasites being the thing that creates the Revenants coming from Oracle cells, as the only thing that can destroy another Oracle cell is another Oracle cell, and an Aragami is just the whole colony of them that took on beastly forms based on what they devour, and they are always hungry, and can use pseudo magic just like the Revenants. Just change their diet from everything to human blood. Hell, even the Revenant resurrection wasn't completely new, because the normal Aragamis, well, the big ones at least, need their core to be torn off to be fully killed, just like how normal Revenants can be killed permanently by having their hearts destroyed because that's where the Boar Parasite resides. And God Eaters, despite being the least Aragami out of all of them, are not exempt from this. Well, there's only one case so far, but it still happened. It was a very special occasion though. And Revenants also has their own Devour attacks, just like God Eaters and Aragamis, which they still have in Code Vein too. And the jails still have that God Arc aka God Eater's weapon look while charging up, just color it goldish instead of the usual black. And while the jails might look alive, especially the Reaper jail, I have to tell you just in case you don't know, God Arcs are tame Aragamis, and they're fully aware, kind of. But if I get into this a bit more, this video just gonna bloat into a God Eater lore video. So I'm just gonna let that info sink in for the Code Vein only fans. Wait, that sounded wrong. Anyway, there's still the small nods to God Eater, like the Great Chain Sword being kinda similar to Lindo's second God Arc, aka the guy that's involved with the time travel stuff, the giant egg tree thing being kinda similar to the spiral tree from God Eater 2. They're also hiding the moon, and God Eater fans know what the moon represents. Kinda weird, don't you think? For them to hide it. And another one being the main healing item is now a syringe, instead of Revenant's natural consumable regen. And what's the icon for the main healing item in God Eater? Yep, I think Revenant Hunters actually pseudo God Eaters with the huge bracelets, which they switch out for gels or something like that. And what about Lou Macmel? Is she an artificial Revenant like Io? Or an evolved human Aragami that somehow has devoured the concept of time travel, which the Oracle cells clearly has some power over it, if the special episode is canon that is. And that's basically my conspiracy theory on how the Code Vein 2 quote-unquote new universe is still connected to the original Code Vein and God Eater. I know it's a bit of a stretch and not a perfect one because it's a different timeline. I'm still taking the depth's worth about the new lore into consideration for this theory, but they could just lie about it. But what do you think? Are there still more connections that I didn't realize? Comment down below, I really would like to know, so I can fit this conspiracy theory more power! Anyway, that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and see ya later. Have a great day. So, nothing about God Eater 4? Like, literally nothing? Okay then.